Make sure you've got your player object open, and let's open its create event. Now here we've been adding variables to the variables code block. Let's add another line, and we're going to create one more variable. We'll call it myState equals, and instead of putting in a value such as a number or a string, we're going to give it the value of an enum. So I will type in player state, which is that enum that we just created, dot, and you'll notice it gives me some auto-fill options here for the various enum fields. Those are the things like idle, carrying, picking up, putting down, that list that we just created. Let's choose the one that says idle. And now our line reads myState equals playerState.idle. This might seem confusing because we're creating a variable and assigning its value as kind of like another variable, but it'll all make sense very quickly. Let's go to the player step event and see this in action. I'm going to make this full screen. Now, we were just looking at the various code for changing the player sprites. Specifically here under the if moving code block, we've got all this code here. It says change walking sprite based on direction. And whether you're going right, left, down, or up, we are changing the sprite as well as setting this dir variable. So we want to keep some of this, but not all of it. So I'm going to change the name of this code block to change direction based on movement, because that'll be more accurate. And I want to delete these lines that say sprite index. We don't need to set the sprite manually anymore. So I'm going to delete this. And your code block should look a little simpler. Should just have these 4 if statements, and then each of them should just be setting the dir variable. Now below that, let's make a new line in between this code block and where it says move audio listener with me. We're going to make a new little code block and call it set state. And we just need one line of code here. It will say myState equals player state dot walking. You can also choose it from the pop-up list. So previously we were manually choosing the sprite. In this case, we're just saying if we're moving, doesn't matter the direction, let's change my state to say that I am walking. And then later, we'll decide what happens when we're walking. Next, we're going to simplify this code block, the one that says if idle. In this code block, we've got this entire switch function that is manually changing our player sprite, depending on which direction we were last facing. Well, as you're quickly going to see, we're not going to need this anymore. So I'm going to delete, yes, this entire function and replace it with one line. It will say myState equals player state dot idle. All we want to worry about here is if I'm not moving, set my state, and then later we'll change what happens to the player depending on that state. So just to be clear, let's run the game again and see what's going on. Now we've actually taken a step backwards here, right? We had all our animation before based on direction, whether we were standing still or moving, and that's all gone. And don't worry, that's okay. That's supposed to be where we're at right now. I just wanted to make sure that you saw what was going on with that code that we created. We basically prepared to make a big change, but right now it's a bit of a regression. That's okay. You can go ahead and close the game window, and we're going to make these states do something and get all of our animation back.